This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org, and today we have scholar, philosopher, Max Igan on the show, joining us to talk about two very important issues. The latest issues, of course, happening with Jeffrey Epstein, and another issue that I didn't even know about, and that is the major issue with water and water scarcity in Australia. We've seen similar news happening in South America, but this is an issue that is going to be a major one, not just for South Africa, not just for Australia, but for the world. And this is why I'm very happy to have Max on. Max has been doing a lot of interesting research, a lot of good work out there in this specific field. But before we get into all of that, Max, I think it's important to get into Jeffrey Epstein, the story of the decade that's being ignored by the large swamps of the mainstream media. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of information. What's the latest information you're seeing that you find most important, Max?
Well, I think the connections of how he got to where he was are the most important things that people aren't looking at. Really, when you look at his connections, you look at his rise to fortune, as it were. Even the beginning, right back in the beginning in the 60s, from the 60s to the 70s, he was working at the Dalton School as teaching math and physics and calculus. This is a man who dropped out of college, who was able to get a position in the Dalton School, which is a very prestigious school. He went from there. He was seen in that school to be paying undue attention to young girls, and then suddenly he gets from there and he gets given a position on the floor of Bear Stearns. Within 4 years, like he's made a meteoric rise in the first year. Then he leaves and comes back, and within 4 years, he's made partner in Bear Stearns. Then he goes on to his only real client that we can ever find is Victoria's Secret. And then he seems to have suddenly taken over Les Wexner's fortune and been given power of attorney, all this sort of stuff. Gets given a $77 million 41-room house in Manhattan. This house had something like 40 bedrooms or something. I mean, it's ridiculous, when you look at his rise to fortune. And there's every indication that Jeffrey Epstein was simply a fall guy for the brownstone operations that were being run by the Mega Group. The Mega Group is a group of very influential business people such as Shimon Peres, Eric Brofman, Lawrence Tisch. There's, I think, that Lauders are in there from Estee Lauder. Of course, Les Wexner's in there as well. This is a group of very, very heavy-hitting billionaires who were really running the show, and I think Epstein has taken the fall for these people. Of course, all the debate is around whether Epstein's dead, whether he isn't, whether he was spirited away, or all that sort of stuff, which is kind of irrelevant. We'll never know. What we do know is he's out of the picture. For all intents and purposes, he's dead, whether he's alive or not. And that's the way they want to keep it. And they want to focus on him, and they want to focus on his co-conspirators like Prince Andrew, and pretend that it's just localized to Prince Andrew as well. He's the only one in the royal family we should be concerned about. Not mentioning Prince Charles' relationship with Jimmy Savile. I mean, this goes very, very deep. What we see here with this Epstein case really is the tip of the iceberg of the worldwide child trafficking network and the brownstone operations that are used to entrap politicians and entrap executives, all this sort of stuff. We're told it was just about spying. He was a spy. He was selling information to all sorts of governments. He was going to set up his super race. But it appears that he was just given an unlimited amount of funds. They created a backstory of a meteoric rise to fame, which would explain these funds, and he was simply running brownstone operations. The way it would be, if you're going to be someone in politics, where you get a friend of Jeffrey Epstein to take you out for dinner, bring you back to the place, you get filmed having sex with an underage girl, and then they've got you. That's how they get everybody. Once you've been caught with an underage person on camera, that's it. You're never going to expose it. You're never going to expose the fact that you're even being blackmailed because you did the wrong thing to begin with. So it's the perfect trap. But that's what I'm seeing with this, is that Epstein's the fall guy. They don't want you looking at the higher echelons. The fact that Ghislaine Maxwell as well, I mean, there isn't an arrest warrant issued for her yet. She's going to come forth and apparently do an interview under her terms. So this shows she has very, very high-level connections as well. And even when you start looking at Epstein's early life, going back to Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, who had heavy Mossad connections, there's every indication that Jeffrey Epstein is simply a fall guy for this Mossad CIA operation that's running all these things worldwide. And I would wonder how many other islands there are like Jeffrey Epstein's island. This surely is not the only person that's doing this.
Yeah, and how many other territories and how many other law enforcement officials, government agents, and politicians are in on it. And the number of people that have allowed the thousands of children to be hurt here is just absolutely staggering. But just as you brought up here, I mean, we're pretty much ultimately talking about the same thing. A large multi-network, multi-agency operation of extortion of the most disgusting kind possible. And again, everything kind of fits together, especially when you look at No Trader on Wall Street having known him or traded with him. You look at the connections with DynCorp, especially with the planes that were registered in his name that were previously registered in DynCorp's name. There's no other way to kind of see this. Now, some of the victims here actually came forward and said that Ghislaine Maxwell was actually even above Epstein here. What do you think about that conclusion? And right now we're seeing a cover-up. Will this cover-up ever be exposed? I mean, the Trump administration under his attorney general, he's talking about a perfect storm of screw-ups. It's not a perfect storm of screw-ups. We know that for sure. What do you think of Ghislaine Maxwell and this kind of larger cover-up happening right now, Max?
Absolutely. Ghislaine Maxwell is above Epstein. She was more of Epstein's handler than anything else. She was the brains behind the operation. You would have needed someone like Ghislaine Maxwell to be doing it. She would have been the one going out there seducing the politicians. Apparently she's very sexual, very open about it. Talks about oral sex a lot, wants to get guys back into that fold, get a young girl in to join it, have a threesome, get them on camera. That's the way it works. She was most definitely the brains behind the operation. And Epstein's the perfect fall guy for it. I mean, you look at the reports that come out about his egg-shaped member down below and all of this sort of stuff, certain sort of deformities there. Here's a guy who has... he's incredibly oversexed, has this incredible sexual appetite, is really attracted to young girls. He's obviously not going to be able to get too many girls because he's got this deformity down below, and girls like to talk about things like that. So word would go out that, you don't really want to be with this guy. So he's the perfect guy to set up so he can have all the girls he wants and run this. And you think about like the backstory and how everything was put in his name. Of course he's the fall guy. Why would you put a $77 million mansion in his name? Apparently he bought it for $1. There's other reports that he bought it for $20 million. All the jets that were put in his name, everything that was put in his name. Just the fact that it was in his name shows that he's not the one. He's the fall guy, because you just have to look at his meteoric rise to fame. And Ghislaine Maxwell, the fact that there is no arrest warrants out for her, she's got very, very high-level contacts. And no, we won't ever get any real justice from the legal system, whatever story they're going to cook up, because the amount of people that would have been compromised in this operation, this is why with any of these things, you can only get so far. You might get a gung-ho lawyer and a gung-ho judge and all these people that want to do the right things, but they'll only get so high in the food chain and they'll get a blockage. They'll get to something where it gets misdirected and the case gets lost because they've just reached a point where someone is compromised. And it's the same in every organization. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's industry or whether it's science community, academia, the legal system, the police system, the judges, the lawyers, the political system. They're all compromised. Otherwise, they do not get in that position to begin with. It's very important for people to understand this. So we're not going to get any real satisfaction from the legal system at all, I don't think. The fact that it's taking this long for Ghislaine Maxwell to even come out and she's going to, tell her story under her conditions and certain names can't be released and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're really trying to find a way out of this mess. And they could have gotten out of it until Prince Andrew did that interview. I mean, what an incredible balls up that was, man. And what a gift to us. Just the fact when they said, why did you go to his house? Oh, it's because I used to meet, it was like a who's who of American eminence. I used to meet people from the United Nations and academia. Oh, really? That's who used to hang out at Jeffrey Epstein's place, was it, Andrew? Thank you very much for that information. He really put his foot in his mouth with that interview. And it blew the whole thing up to an incredible level that it wasn't before. So, people say who are saying, well, maybe it was all planned. I don't think so. I think he broke ranks. I think that he really had the ego to think that he could just go out there and smooth the waters, and he really put his feet so far in his mouth, and he gave us a wealth of information. So,
yeah.
Thank God for Prince Andrew.
I think it was definitely hubris, or it could have been someone with a guilty conscience just trying to signal. Because a lot of times when people do something really bad, it kind of eats at them up, and I kind of lean towards more of the hubris kind because he does have diplomatic immunity. He hasn't been questioned by the British authorities, who don't want to question him, who don't want to bring him in, even though there's a lot of victims coming forward directly pointing the finger at him. In any other case, with any other person in the United Kingdom, you misgender someone, you go to jail. Prince Andrew, with numbers of victims pointing to him directly, doing the most evil things. No, the police aren't even interested in going after him. They're investigating gender neutral hats and all this other nonsense. With Ghislaine Maxwell, it was reported by The Sun that she might be coming forward and doing the interview. Then other news organizations like the New York Post and the Daily Mail started running with those headlines, and those headlines did very well as far as viewership. But when you look at The Sun and their original reporting of Ghislaine Maxwell coming forward, I don't trust them because there was no source. There was no official person behind those words. And the media here, by the way, is perfectly manipulatable and also guilty and culpable in this larger scheme. We can't forget that. The authorities here are guilty. The mainstream media is guilty here, as we covered on this YouTube channel many, many times, documenting it, showing it, the evidence. This is why independent media is so important. This is why we're under attack. This is why Max is under attack. I could just keep going about this forever. But let's transition here because we got a lot of different issues to get into, and the kind of water issues, the water rights issues you've been telling me are absolutely shocking. Tell us, Max, unless you want to talk about other stuff that I just added to with Epstein, but let's try to transition here and what's happening with Australia and the larger issue of fresh water.
It's extremely bad, but I will just make one more comment on what you said before about the police not investigating Prince Andrew. People have to understand that the police in England and the legal system, the judges, the lawyers, anybody in any position of authority in the UK, when they take that position, when they take their oath of office, they do not swear to serve England, they do not swear to serve the Crown, they swear to serve Her Majesty. So they are not capable of launching an investigation into anybody who will eventually implicate the royal family because they're bound by their oath to serve Her Majesty. So how can they launch an investigation which will implicate the royal family? They can't. That's the thing. That's something I pointed out on a show recently, or on one of the reports I did regarding Epstein. I've actually put out 4 reports regarding Epstein. You can check my channel, The Crow House, on YouTube, and you can look at those reports. And I talked about a decree that was enacted by the Queen of England, which was a decree from the Catholic Church, which was enacted by the Catholic Church in 1991, which she adopted for the Anglican Church in England in 2010. And it's a decree called Crimen Solicitationis, which is a decree which basically says that all pedophilia exposed within the church must be investigated by the church. It must be investigated internally. It's basically a decree to cover up pedophilia within the church, and to even punish anybody who speaks out about it, even the victims if they speak out about it. So by adopting that decree, Crimen Solicitationis, into the British religious system, the Queen is now in breach of her coronation oath. So if you're a police officer out there who believes you are bound by your oath not to investigate the royal family, well, now the Queen is in breach of her oath and really under British law must abdicate. So, how bound by their oath should any police officer feel? I'd just like to point that out. I think it's an important thing. Getting onto Australia here, we are in dire straits in this country. We've run out of water. We're running out of water very quickly. All the creeks around here have stopped flowing. And these are all spring-fed creeks that don't stop flowing. They never stop. This country is in dire straits. The fires that are burning here are literally out of control. They are so huge, some of these fires, and they are burning like fires have never burned before. Some of the fireys are saying, the rural fire service people that have gone and fought a lot of these fires are saying this is like a firestorm they've never seen. The country is tinder dry, but there's something about the fires. They're burning much, much hotter and much faster and far more intense than they normally are. The water that we're facing, the problems with the water here is floodplain farming, floodplain harvesting, which is preventing the water from getting into the river systems, and a whole bunch of private dams that have been built by large agro companies like from Canada and China and other places that are basically stealing the water from the river systems and using it for large agricultural purposes in the northern reaches of Australia. It's not getting down to the people. This has all been done by design. This entire drought has been manufactured, and the loss of water is manufactured. And it says in our constitution that, you cannot take water. You cannot. I think I've even got it here. The Constitution. No, I haven't got it right here. But it says in the Constitution that you cannot. There is no state can legislate anything. There is no levy. There is no commerce. There is nothing that you can do to control the water. And yet the government is selling the water from this country to other countries now, creating this drought on purpose. And the fires that we've seen here, Luke, like the fires in California, and we're figuring out what's fueling these fires as well. The geoengineering that we talk about, the naughty word you're not allowed to utter, chemtrails, the spraying that goes on in the sky that so many people deny. I don't know why they deny it. You look up, it's there, and they're saying it's jet exhaust. Well, jets don't have exhausts like this, and contrails don't linger like this. And we've done tests on soil and tests on water, and we've found unusual levels of substances, three main substances, which is aluminium, barium, and strontium, is what we're finding in soil samples and in water samples. This seems to be coming from the spraying in the skies. Now, it's really significant because a friend of mine, or someone on my video clip, on my last video clip that I posted, actually said that they had gone and Googled, they'd gone and checked and searched for the chemical compounds used to make sparklers. Sparklers that you get at fireworks, the metal on a stick and you light them and they sparkle. The active compound in sparklers, there's certain things you can use, but the couple of mandatory ingredients that you must have in sparklers are aluminium, and they also need a accelerant to work with the aluminium, and there are 4 accelerants named, and the 2 main ones you must have are strontium and barium. So this is basically the ingredients of sparklers. This is what's in the chemtrails. This is why the fires are burning so intensely. This is why they are spraying all of our countries. When you look at the situation here in Australia, even the barometric radars, the barometers that we have, the weather radars all around the country, we've got 55 radars around this country. They each cover an area of around 200 miles in span, and yet they're really, really close together all around city areas. Why? Because they're pushing the storms away. They know they can push storms away. They know they can seed clouds. The weather here is being controlled, and people will not admit it. But they are using these radars to push the clouds away, to create high-pressure systems, to push all the weather away. They are spraying our countries with this compound, which is basically sparkler ingredient, and then they're just igniting fires. All you've got to do is throw a cigarette butt out the window in this sort of condition, and the fire that you get from it is outrageous. And that's what's happening to this country. But by removing all the water, the people don't realize the seriousness of this situation. The towns are being removed of water, and without water, there can be no life. Now, when you look at the Deagle website and you look at all those figures they give you on the Deagle.com website, where it predicts the figures for 2017 and then in 2025, and we see major population reductions in all our countries. Australia is set to be reduced by population by around 12 to 15 million people between now and 2025. How do you think they're going to do that, folks? They're burning us out with these fires and these droughts, and it's all being done by design. They're controlling the weather. They're blocking the water from getting into the river systems. They're spraying the country with sparkler material, and they're calling it climate change, and people are going along with it. I also had a document that was released to me, which is a draft, a council planning draft for between 2017 and 2040. And they're talking about in the draft how they're going to be moving people out of high-risk areas and limiting construction in high-risk areas prone to fire and all this sort of stuff. Now, so they're moving people out. They're burning people out of the country. And what they're doing here as well, after the fires have gone through and these places have burnt down, the council's going through and they're chopping down the trees that are left. They're saying, oh, it's a fire hazard. We've got to clear the trees that are left. If the fire's gone through, how are the trees that are left a fire hazard? How's the forest ever going to grow back if you don't leave any trees there? That's what they're doing to this country, Luke, and people are not paying attention, and it's extremely serious. And I put out a video day before yesterday called Australia, Wake Up or Die. Please make this viral. I would ask you to please put a link to that video below this video on your channel, and please share this video. It's so important that the people wake up to what is happening here. Now, this is a big country and we're running out of water, and people just aren't going to see until it's too late. And it's virtually too late now, you know. And if people do not rally up and get out to the center of this country and start breaking open these dams that are holding this water back from the river system, a lot of people in this country are going to die. This is genocide, and it's being presented to the world as climate change, and it's not climate change. It's being done by the government, and it's so important, Luke. It's so important.
Yeah, Max, as you were talking, I was playing some of the videos that you showed me and some of the articles that you sent me as well. And I mean, the videos are astonishing, seeing the level of droughts. And I remember not so long ago seeing pictures and videos of these fires ravaging the main city center of Sydney. And I'm like, holy cow, these are extreme, massive fires. I never thought about the kind of chemical weather engineering. Now, as we know, China openly admits that they do weather modifications. Other countries totally ignore it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that this, of course, happens. And then, of course, you have the climate change kind of argument that the solution is always taxing, regulating, and controlling people to stop climate change. And again, this kind of makes a lot of sense, and I thank you for putting all of this together. That video that you mentioned, of course, will be down below in the description, so definitely check out that video. Definitely go check out Max Igan. We've been on for a while. I know we could talk for like hours. We could talk for like 5 hours about this issue, but I think we got to the core of it. If not, if you want to say anything else, Max, feel free to interrupt. But specifically, just tell us, where can people find out more information about you and your videos?
You can find everything out about me at my website, thecrowhouse.com. I've got a YouTube channel called The Crow House as well. And it's extremely important what I'm saying here, folks. This is genocide, and this is what is coming to your countries as well. I mean, we're all facing water shortages in our countries. And when you start thinking about the active ingredients in what is going on in the spraying, how it is actually the ingredients of sparkler material, this is what is setting these fires off so much. I'm going to do another video today, and I'm going to show you where all these radars are and a little bit more information about this, include this sparkler information and a few things as well. But, you know, they're test running it now here in Australia, and they're destroying this country. They're burning it out. They're burning out the wildlife. They're burning out the people. And, you know, for all the grab bags and things that we think we can do to run off into the country and survive whatever's coming when the New World Order comes out, you know, if there's no water, then you can't survive. It's as simple as that. And that's how they're doing it. And that's what's going to be coming to your country as well. So it's important that people pay attention to this. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not joking. This is an extremely serious issue. And a lot of people in Australia are going to lose their lives if this is not brought to a stop pretty soon and these people do not rise up and rally up and oust these criminals that are running this country into the ground. Thanks for having me on, Luke. And please do share this information with people, and we'll do it again, and I'll bring you an update as soon as I've got one.
Yeah, and what you're saying makes absolute sense, especially if you look at the very powerful, the supposed elites. A lot of them are buying up water rights. A lot of them are also very worried about water rights. And when you really look into
And also, you know, all the stuff that we've been speculating over the chemtrails, is it genetic engineering? Is it this? Is it that? Well, now you see what they're actually doing. These are ingredients we've identified, what sparklers are made of, and the intensity of these fires, global warming, climate change. It's all manufactured. You can see how they're putting the theatre together and how they're selling it to the people. And we've got all the pieces of the puzzle we need now to stop it. So it's extremely important, Luke. It's extremely important. And again, thank you for having me on.
And it stops with you understanding what's happening and you getting an alternative point of view that you would never get on the mainstream media. And this only happens because of your support of this independent media organization, because of your support of Max Igan, not only with donating, but most importantly, voting with your clicks, voting with your attention, and sharing this video is extremely important. If you made it this far, share this video with your friends and family members, because you could bet your bottom dollar it's most likely not going to be recommended to the average person. The only way for this messaging, for this counter information, for this other side of the story to go out there, to actually get another understanding, to actually get a good point of view, is with you. And because the few individuals still here on this YouTube channel do that and get this message across, this is why I always try to end every broadcast by saying, love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.